Hey everyone, happy Saturday. So as promised, I'm going live again today to just talk a little bit more about our favorite topic this weekend, budgeting. And what I'm going to talk about today, so if you are watching this on the replay, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I will try to answer them. And then if you're watching this live, say hello. Maybe I'll give a couple seconds to see if anyone joins, but it's Saturday, so maybe you're out just doing your thing. Totally fine. And so I hope you're having a wonderful day thus far. I wanted to hop in on this live and talk a little bit about why budgets don't work for a lot of people, or the budget killers. So some of these are things that stop a budget before they even have a chance for like success. And I want to bring them up to your attention so that if you are maybe thinking about this or not thinking about it or doing these things, you can stop to then now create a successful budget and plan for your finances. So mistake or budget killer number one is really not understanding the basics and the importance of a budget. And so it's almost like budget denial. It's the people that maybe do the budgets in their head and say, I don't really have to write it down. I kind of know what's happening. I know what's going on. And you do this like mental accounting where you think you understand. Hey, whoever's watching, I can't tell. I can't see. But you do all this accounting in your head about your finances instead of writing them down, because in your head, one, you don't understand the importance of a budget. But even if you know that there's budgets to be had and done, you just don't want to do it because maybe it just seems overwhelming. So you push it to the back burner. Hey, Jasmine, how are you doing? Happy Saturday. You push it to the back burner and you just don't put the attention on it that it needs. So I say that's budget denial. That stops you from creating a budget and creating one successfully. So also, if you head into creating a budget with some opposition and some like push and pull like in it, where you're not fully committed to like at least making it work and trying, if you already have negative thoughts in your head that, wow, I'm not good at numbers, I've never been good at this, I've never succeeded at this. If you have that negative thought process while starting a budget, it's not going to help the situation, right? So again, it's really also about being positive about the process and the outcome, no matter how difficult. So that all leads back into people who just assume that, whatever, I don't want to do a budget because it's too hard, or I don't understand it, and it's budget denial. So that's budget killer number one, just denying yourself the opportunity to start one because you don't want to admit how important it is to your finances. And I would say that a lot of people see why that fails a lot when they, by the end of the month, they don't understand what happened to all their money. It's like a thief took out the money from their bank account because they don't understand what happened. So that's budget denial number one, or budget killer or budget mistake number one, being in denial about a budget and the importance of a budget. Budget mistake or budget killer number two is not setting aside the dedicated time it takes to keep a budget going. So what happens often is, okay, let me know if you're watching and you've had this experience. You start something. Well, this doesn't even have to just be a budget. Maybe it's a diet. Maybe it's a resolution. Maybe it's just something that you start one time and you feel like, you're like, wow, that kind of worked really well. Or maybe it worked okay, right? And instead of continuing and setting aside the dedicated time to like nurture and grow like the process and all that, you kind of just stop because it's like you think you finished just from the first step. And a budget really involves taking the time, setting aside the dedicated time to make it work. Now, listen, I know another misconception about budgets is that it has to like take forever to do, and that's not the case. Now, in the beginning, it may take some time to set it up, to get the process that works for you going, and to figure out, how you're going to update it and when. And so that might take a little time starting. But I will say this, once you start to like get the systems and processes in place, which is what I'm going to show you at the Budget Bootcamp if you join. And you also will see that really maintaining a budget can take 15 minutes, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes a week to maintain. So once you have the systems in place, once you understand like what you're doing and whatever works best for you, a budget doesn't have to take that long of your or that much of your time. And so a budget killer would be now number 2 is not setting aside the dedicated time to learn and understand, to set one up, and then just maintaining it as you go forward and along. So you can't just like set it up and then be like, oh, I set it up, I'm good. You have to maintain it. You have to track what you spent. You have to create a new budget for the month. And again, these don't all have to take a lot of time, but it does take some time to set up. But once you have it down pat, I'm telling you, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And again, it's one of the things I'm going to talk about at the Budget Bootcamp is how you can set up a budget that works for you, works for your schedule, and it's not overwhelming. Budget killer number 3. Jasmine, are you saying yes to, I didn't know what you're saying yes to because I think there's a delay. But yes, girl, yes. So budget killer number 3. Killer number 3 is giving up. Okay? Giving up when the going gets tough or giving up when the budget gets tough. Now, listen, like not everything will come, easy. Not everything, especially when it comes to finances. It's an ongoing process. Even myself, even with my current budget, sometimes, like there might be something out of place or something not adding up. And, maybe if I was a little bit more, I would say impatient, I would be like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But I realized the benefit of having this budget, the benefit of having my freedom plan. So I call my budget a freedom plan, which I'll talk about more in the Budget Bootcamp, because I also think we need to reframe the way we think about budgets. Instead of thinking of it as limiting, think about it as freedom. So I like to call it my freedom plan because when I use my budget correctly, it's my freedom plan. It puts me on my path to financial freedom. So we'll talk about that more in the bootcamp if you join. But yes, even just like from like this conversation, I want you to understand that, the budget is not always going to like come like that. You're going to have starts. You might have stops. You might take 2 steps forward. You might take a step back, and that's okay. But just don't give up. This is like anything that our parents have taught us, right? Like it's like, the best things are the things that you continue to work at. You'll get better the more you do it. And so that's another thing that, I think what happens also with the budget is that because you don't have someone with you understanding one, or helping you like create one, like there's no accountability, which is what I want to do a little bit with the Budget Bootcamp is afterwards set up some accountabilities with everyone. So if you do join, there will be some steps where afterwards I'm not, I want to make sure that you're continuing on this budget path. So there'll be more to that about the accountability factor of it, because I don't want you to give up. Even if you don't even take the class, right? I just want you to understand that not everything will come right away, but you have to keep trying. You have to keep going. Okay, I think I have a comment or question. Hey, Natasha, how are you doing? My challenge is that I have an inconsistent income and he is a business owner. And Natasha, that can be very challenging, like the inconsistent income, because then it's like, okay, so how do you then budget if you're not understanding how much you're having coming in? And so, I would also recommend, so Natasha, I would recommend if that's the case with you guys, I don't know if you have a budget already that works. If you do, great for you. But if you are maybe trying to figure out how to start like accounting for your money, is there a baseline at least? Like, okay, so maybe you don't consistently bring home the same amount every week or every month, but is there a baseline that, typically there's an average that you don't go under? I would start with like the average or the baseline amount that you guys bring in and work from there. And so that, that happens with a lot. Yeah. So I know sometimes it's hard to like when it's inconsistent income, or it's hard to figure out like what exactly to budget for. But I would say, what's your average? What's your baseline income? And then what are your real core expenses? Because obviously those need to be paid for first. And then from there, depending on like your other expenses and how much more income additionally comes in over your average, you can start allocating money that way. I mean, another thing that I teach also, and what I aim for in my budget, is getting ahead. So that's also another thing with the budget where it's just like, okay, the main goal too is also to get ahead and not be living paycheck to paycheck or cycle to cycle. So that way you're almost at a buffer where you have enough money and maybe a month or 2 more in your checking and savings accounts to cover like the next bill, right? Because sometimes bills are due at different points in our budget or in our in the month or in the cycle. And then if everything's due at once, then you're kind of back at square one with 0 in your account. And so the important thing, especially when you're starting out, like is a goal that I have and what I'll be teaching in the budget camp, is that the goal is to put a buffer in your account to get a 1 month ahead of your expenses. So that way, if you do have an inconsistent income and maybe you don't make as much or you don't bring as much in time for the next check or bill to get paid, you have a buffer. There's a buffer in your account where then you don't ever feel like you're going in the red. You know, that it's kind of like a safety net for you. So that would be even, you know, just a goal for anyone having a budget. Really try to get at least a month's worth of expenses and that buffer in your account. So that way, when things get paid out at different times, you don't get caught up in the cycle of, oh, I have zero money in my account, I have to wait to get paid again. So the goal would be to try to put that buffer in where you're at least 1 month ahead with your expenses. So those were the 3 main budget killers I wanted to talk about. You know, there are obviously more that we'll go into at the budget bootcamp class and then I'll like go through steps on how to to avoid those pitfalls. But the 3 main ones: budget denial, that's one, not understanding the importance of one. Number 2 would be not setting aside the dedicated time. And so yes, you should be setting aside time every week. So if you're just starting with the budget, you should be setting aside time. I would say in the beginning, it's going to take, which is what we're going to accomplish a lot in the boot camp. We're going to like really sit down and do a lot of this up front. But if you're doing this on your own, you want to make sure you're setting aside at least a couple hours up front to set it up. And then going forward, you know, at first when I started my budget, I used to do it every day. I used to check it and reconcile the numbers every day. But now I do it like once a week. Sometimes I get away with doing it once every other week. And that's when you really, really get good with the system. So, you know, again, it depends, but you need that time. So budget denial number 2, or budget killer number 2 is not setting aside the dedicated time. Budget killer number 3 is giving up when it gets tough. And listen, it even gets a little tough for me, right? Like sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, like I don't really feel like doing this, but I understand that I need to in order to reach my goals, because again, the budget gives you a plan. It's my freedom plan. It could be your freedom plan. So I just wanted to hop on and tell you guys this on this lovely Saturday. I hope you guys, Natasha, if you're still watching, and who else was watching? Jasmine. You know, I hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday. If you're watching this on the replay, you can ask questions. I'll jump in and comment. Again, if you're interested in joining the bootcamp class, enrollment closes on Monday. So I know sometimes maybe you guys, like I do this too. You wait till the last minute, but I'm telling you not to wait, because I don't want you to miss out on it if the cart closes before, you know, you realize it. But it does close on Monday, and I'm limiting the seats because I don't want it to be too big for this first round of students. I want to be able to dedicate, you know, and answer your questions. So again, I'll drop the link in the notes of this video so you can sign up if you want. How do you join? So I'll put Natasha. It's all on my timeline, but I will put it again in. I'll post it again. I'll post it again on this video. It's just a link to sign up and grab your seat. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to get back. I don't know what I'm doing for the rest of my Saturday, but I hope you enjoy yours. Natasha, I'll either at you or I'll put the link up and you'll see it if you're interested. All right, guys. Bye.